Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, talking X-Men 97 is Ron. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing good, man. It's yet another good week to be an X-Men / Mutants fan. We've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today between this Deadpool and Wolverine trailer that we're a little late to the party to, but whatever. And this awesome X-Men 97 episode that we got again today. So there's a lot to get into for sure.
A little late to the party, like literally less than 48 hours. But
Yeah, we know how the
48
cycle
hours.
of this stuff goes.
Yeah, but this
Yeah.
stuff, this cycle does change. Let's start with general thoughts on, let's dive in Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. We'll start with that, get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm. General
Thoughts on it. I'll share what I thought on Monday. I was a little underwhelmed. I think the first trailer is actually, I like the first trailer better. This one, and you know what though? I've been telling people I'm fine with that. Like I'm not going to take it out on the movie or anything. For me, like I don't want them to show anything. I'd rather be underwhelmed because I just know there's so much stuff that they're probably going to end up like wanting to show us that I'd rather see on the screen in the theater instead. So for me, a little underwhelming, but I'm totally fine with that. I know I know some people are like, "Oh, the sleeves are off. The sleeves are off. I love it."
Sleeves!
And I'm like, "Yeah, it looks good." Like
Yeah.
that was never a deal breaker for me or anything. So I don't know. I'm still excited for it. I think part of my excitement's a little tempered because I don't know when I'm gonna see it, right? So in this case, it's just like, oh yeah, it looks good. I don't have to see another trailer. Like I'm sold on it. I'm gonna hopefully be able to see it at some point. But yeah, so just maybe a little underwhelming, but I'm happy I'm underwhelmed as much as that makes sense.
And for those of you who are listening who don't know, Jordan's child is expected that week, so he's got a pass for why he's
No,
not.
I'm protesting.
Yeah. So we don't have to revoke his nerd card totally, but I very much echo your sentiments. Except I wasn't underwhelmed, but in terms of the not sharing too much, totally on board. I think back to Multiverse of Madness when they gave away that Charles was going to be in the movie in the trailer, and that scene didn't hit nearly as hard for me in theaters as it should have because of that. Even though, like, it was the worst kept secret ever that him and Reed were going to be in the movie in some kind of capacity. But to actually see it and, like, see the circumstances of it and stuff before we even got into the theater really kind of dampened it for me. So I'm glad that they are not going that route and instead taking the No Way Home route, where they basically kept everything under wraps in terms of the other two Peters and stuff like that. Like, we saw the villains, obviously, but that's because you have to. It's a trailer. You got to show the villains. I really loved the stuff that we saw, the brief elements that we saw of Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova. The fact that she lives inside of a giant Ant-Man skull is, like, perfect. So cool. The little thing that she did with Wolverine, like, just, I could tell she's going to be a charisma factory in this movie, and I think she's going to kill it. I cannot wait. So yeah, it wasn't anything that was really going to blow your socks off, like you said, in terms of this trailer. We got a general idea of what the story is going to be, and that's really all we need. The movie's going to sell itself, like, just because Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are reprising these roles. So they doesn't, including a cameo in any of these trailers, is not going to affect the success of this movie. So just don't. So just don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some if you want to look for them, right? Like at the Ant-Man body, this is where it looks like Toad, not Toad, Toad is there, but Pyro, from the scene from the first trailer where he's on top of the car. It's at this scene. If you look in the background, you see, like, what, Lady Deathstrike,
right? Azazel.
Yeah.
So we see some, but they were cameos,
but not like not the big one.
Yeah, they're cameos that you would just kind of expect to be in this movie. Like, we haven't seen Chris Evans as Human Torch yet. You know what I mean? Who is another one that's been kind of thrown around the rumor mill as potentially being in this movie. I think we definitely have to do an episode. Not to then you can go. We have to do an episode before this movie comes out. Just each giving our like one most wanted cameo and stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, because I know that like kind of on social media in the last week or two, it seems like amongst the scooper community, which again, you can never really know what's up and what's down with them. It seems like expectations are being tempered a little more in the sense of like, okay, don't expect this to be Secret Wars and don't set yourself up for another Multiverse of Madness situation where, everybody and their mother was rumored to be in it. And then by the time the movie actually came out, we got like 5 cameos or just all the people in the Illuminati.
Yeah, we kind of had to talk about this offline, but I'm keeping my expectations low, and that was in regards to Secret Wars, but it's in regards to this too. Like people like my time to say, "Oh no," is what I call her right now because like anytime she pops up, that's what I say. But my time to shine. Hello, putting like, yeah, Chris Evans is back as Human Torch, and I'm like, I just don't want to get that hope up. Like, because then if I'm in the movie waiting for it and it doesn't happen, I will be a little bit disappointed. Not enough where it affects the movie, I don't think, but I'd be like, that would have been cool. So in my mind, I'm always, every time I try to go into a movie, I do try to like take a breath before it starts and say, all right, everything you think about this movie, forget about it and go in with what the movie actually is, right? Like I don't want to like judge the movie harshly for something that it never was. So I look, and that's something Chris Evans would probably be down to do, and Ryan would probably want to do it, right? Like
they're buddies, yeah.
So it could happen, but for me, like in my peace of mind, I'm going in thinking we're gonna get the Fox X-Men, and that's where I'm kind of drawing my line right now. Like we're getting the Fox X-Men.
Yep.
Some of them, not all of them, and I'm that's what I'm gonna go with going into the movie. Of course, by the time I see it, I'm gonna get spoiled. I just know I'm gonna try not to, but I am gonna get spoiled.
Oh,
and at that point, it'll be whatever. But like it in my mind, when I'm building up to the hype of this, I'm just not trying to jump onto any of that. Not that I was there in Multiverse of Madness. Like I was there. I was talking about the show. I had the podcast then. We were talking about this type of stuff, but I was never fully on the we're getting the Tom Cruise. We're getting, I was never on that train.
Doctor Doom. Yeah.
People were building it up more, right? Like people thought, oh, Raimi directed it. We're gonna get Toby. We're gonna get Toby in here, and I'm like, why would he come in that movie? Like when you think about, especially contract wise, that's another thing we don't think about. Like if you're adding in any of the Sony stuff, you have to worry about the contracts because when they re-upped their deal, they got No Way Home and they get another movie to put him in. Right. And I was like, they're not going to burn that on a Tobey Maguire in Doctor Strange 2. They're not going to do that.
No.
So that's where you also have to think too. I know some people want to just throw out stuff and be like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen." But one thing that I'll say that I'm the most excited for is just the suit itself. Like I mean, it looks great. The claw guard stuff, right, where it pops out from the claws.
Dude, even that scene where he does pop it out, like. It looks so like it looks like a practical effect, and I can't tell if it is or not. Like the way that the blades come out of the glove, there's like a little shake there, almost like it's. I don't even know how I would describe it, but just it doesn't look as clean as just chink and they come out and it's just they're like there. It feels like there's like some resistance when they're coming out, and it feels a lot more like real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So a lot of people were speculating that the one in the bar that does have trouble getting him out is a different one than this, right?
Yeah,
different
I do think so.
I'm thinking not at this point because like these do still come out super slow.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like slower faster than it is in the bar, slower than what we would think Prime Wolverine is. So I'm thinking maybe this is going to show progress here of what he's maybe able to, he's getting better at maybe whipping them out again. Don't, sorry.
You're
All
good.
right.
But to your point, I will say I'm just not really sure. Like, so this, from what we can gather based on what we've seen in these trailers, it seems like Deadpool is going after Wolverine variants. So I'm just not sure how that Wolverine would go from being, just sitting in a bar in his universe to making this big leap to then being in the void and having the yellow suit. It feels like a big jump. Like, just
Yeah.
when you look at those two characters and like where they are at in their Wolverine journey, however you want to put it, it seems like they're at very opposite ends of the spectrum in that regard. The one we see in Battle World looks a lot more, not Battle World. Who knows? Might end up being Battle World. But for now, what we know is the Void seemed to be a lot more, like, I wouldn't say well put together, but a lot stronger, a lot more ready to fight. Whereas the one we see in the bar is very much old man Logan, broken down, beaten old man.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to that is maybe that's the character growth that Wolverine has to go on. So like you're right, it could just be totally taken out of context. So that way there's a common theory going around that he goes to different Wolverines before settling on the one that we see in the suit. But maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I would like the idea more if it is the same guy. And it's like we see his journey from being this guy who's washed up at the bar, having trouble, pulling out the claws, to then resuiting up and, being a hero again. Trailers are edited that way, though, where it's very, he has this line like about how Wolverine let down his world, right? What do you think that is?
Well, I think it ties back into a theory that we've kind of heard going around social media, but is really kind of a Marvel thing in general. I think they're just kind of tweaking it a little bit. Essentially, what in the comic would be Nexus beings, but I forget what exactly it is they were calling them in the MCU, but basically just the theory that each universe has one sort of pillar character where if they die or if they are removed from the equation, then that universe goes away. So I'm going to guess, shoot, it's so tough. I hadn't even thought to like actually craft a theory on this. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. I'm really not.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm like, how much could Wolverine have been able to do to save his world? Now, I just read Old Man Logan for the first time. The arc from the Wolverine comics, and then they made a separate comic run through, and then they made a separate comic run through again. But I read the one that led in. I read the one that took place during Secret Wars, and I read the one before that.
Okay.
And then there's a Jeff Lemire run that I started reading that takes place after Secret Wars. But because some people were thinking maybe it had something to do with Old Man Logan's story, where he gets manipulated from Mysterio and the villains to end up slaughtering his friends.
Yeah, that could be. Because we also we see at one point in this trailer, and the way that I took it, it could be wrong, but I took it as Emma, or not Emma. Well, technically yes, Emma Corrin, but Cassandra Nova, sort of like messing with his head a little bit. We see Logan in a white T-shirt, and he's like looking up at what we assume are graves of mutants. So that would kind of support that theory, but. Again, then we're talking about, if he kills the X-Men, how does that doom his world? Unless he isn't that Nexus being, but another character was, and he killed that, maybe a Jean, somebody like that. And by him killing that character, that's what ended up, that's how his universe got destroyed. That could totally be.
Yeah, I also saw the theory that maybe he didn't kill Jean Grey in The Last Stand, and, that created a big issue in his world.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't complain if that was the route. My girl.
Yeah, but yeah, so we're excited for it. I'm ready for it. You know, the Liefeld's store in the background's pretty funny.
Yeah, only feet or feet only,
Yeah,
whatever it's called.
just feet.
Just
Yeah,
feet.
he
Yeah.
can't, and he can't draw feet, so that's what that's a reference to. And then, of course, we have the speculation on they definitely whited this out so you can't see where they're going, but
Oh yeah.
somebody opens up a Doctor Strange portal that they leap into. We call it a Doctor Strange portal, but it's just any of the magic users
Mhm.
can do it.
Yeah, and there's another rumor going around right now is that Cassandra Nova is going to have a sling ring, like is going to kill a strange variant and have one of those. So it could even be her
Would
sending.
that would that make sense though? If like she's the main villain and she opens up a portal and they're like, "Yeah, let's jump into it." Like I feel like I wouldn't trust jumping into a portal that Cassandra opens.
It would have to be more of like her forcing them to do it, like mentally, like again,
Right. Okay.
it's a
Yeah.
bit of a stretch, but it was a theory out there. I've also seen the theory that that portal is not going to even end up being a portal by the time the movie comes out. Like
Oh,
it's a kind of a
misdirection.
stand-in for something else. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case either. I do think it is going to be a portal. Um, I really hope it's not just Wong. Like, I don't get me wrong, I love me some Wong, and I did not mean for that to rhyme. I promise you, I did not mean for that to rhyme. But it seems like it's almost just become the running joke now of like, oh, Wong's in everything. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
That's why I said it because it's probably going to be Wong. Like that he seems so down to be in every movie. He's like, "Yeah, I'll show up on set for 2
yeah,
days."
yeah. So that, and again, like that feels like something that Deadpool would very much like make a joke about in character, sort of thing. You
Yeah,
know what I
like,
mean?
man, we couldn't even get Doctor Strange in this. Like, we had to settle for Wong. Like, I could
Yeah.
see him making a joke like that.
Yeah, or like it's like Wong and Madison from She-Hulk
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, that would be funny. I also if Magneto is in this movie, which I would be stunned if he isn't at this point, Deadpool has to call him Gandalf at some point, right?
If
Has
it's
to.
Ian McKellen, yeah.
Oh
I don't
yes.
want that in
Yeah.
the other guy.
Yeah, no, it couldn't be if it was Fassbender that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, if he has to. Like has to.
I would actually love it more if he called him Dumbledore, just even, like, messing
Yeah,
with
yeah.
it.
Or like the running joke of the movie is that he calls him like a different Ian McKellen character every time.
Yes. You have to be on top of your Ian McKellen characters in
Yeah.
that case.
Yeah.
Um, did you wanna talk about the color grading at all? I know you were very passionate about it on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just it's one of many things that that people have been complaining about in this trailer. Along with a really weird gripe about people now not liking the sleeves being off, even though that's all anybody could complain about for months when the digital images came out of
Well,
him.
I will say it does look weird, and the reason why it looks weird is because they didn't keep the blue top on here.
Yeah,
The blue
they
shoulder
still
guard?
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't really kill it for
Still
me.
looks fine, right?
Yeah,
I mean
yeah, like people act like somebody put up a tweet saying it ruins the Wolverine look. Like, what are you talking about? And then of course they try to play the oh, you can't make one little critique anymore. Like there's a difference between making a small little critique and saying that the look is ruined. That's not a small critique. That's a massive critique. And if you're gonna put that out there, like which is again so untrue in my opinion and thankfully in most opinions, but it seems like these voices that do nothing complain are just getting louder and louder and it's very tiresome. But yeah, with the color grading thing, so everyone's complaining about the void and how it's very dull, it's flat, it's this or that. It's a desolate wasteland where things go to die. Do you want it to look like Candyland? Like I don't understand it. Like if you're just throwing the saturation up on everything, it's going to take away a lot of that set ambience that they're trying to convey by making things seem so dank and having the sort of brighter suits be the contrast to that darker background or I guess kind of lighter sandier background if in this case. So it's one of those things that I think it's just another symptom of the bigger disease, whatever you want to call it, that people just have to complain about everything these days. Like
yeah.
and the false comparisons and the sort of revisionist history of like the MCU was never like this. All right, dude, go watch Captain America and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America the Winter Soldier. I mix those up sometimes, and tell me that movie doesn't look a little quote unquote dull. Or go
Right,
watch,
right.
yeah, or go watch
And
the
people
first.
still call that the best one.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Nobody complains about the color grading in that movie. Like it's such a ridiculous thing. Like if you can watch that trailer, even in your case, you said you were a little underwhelmed by it, and understandably so. But if you consider yourself a fan of this stuff and you watched that trailer for all of these years that we've been dying, not only to get Deadpool in the MCU, but to get X-Men in the MCU, and not only X-Men, we're getting the X-Man, as Deadpool says in the trailer, Wolverine in his yellow suit, like just things that even 4 or 5 years ago we wouldn't even be able to comprehend. If you can watch all that in this trailer and your thought is, well, the color grading appears to be off a little bit, like go do something else. Seriously, go find another hobby, because this one clearly isn't that enjoyable for you.
Well, the thing that gets me is it just seems like everybody on Twitter is some sort of cinematography expert.
Yeah, yeah,
They're like, the camera is not moving enough, or the camera moves too much. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, what do you actually know about this stuff? I just don't. As long as I'm entertained and I have a good story, like that's my key thing when I go see a movie. And
yeah,
I mean, look, that pops. Like it's a
yeah.
better Deadpool suit. It's a better Wolverine suit than we've ever gotten. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's just people yelling at clouds at this point. And I wish, again, if this is just something that doesn't bring you joy anymore, not you specifically talking to these people, if it's something that this doesn't bring you joy anymore, and it's the same thing we see with Star Wars fans a lot, go do something else. No one's forcing you to be here. No one's forcing you. No one's sitting there with your eyes like this and making you watch all these movies. Like, go do something that makes you happy, because it clearly ain't this anymore.
Well, do you think back in like the 60s when people were watching movies, there were people that had these actual discussions of the color grading was not great? Like
No,
that's
no.
what I wonder. I'm like, why did it all of a sudden these terms just take off on social media?
Because it
People use
allows
this.
people to feel like they know what they're talking about. That's what it is.
That's what it seems like. And it's like I get it if it doesn't, but like I said, I don't even like see it a lot of the times. I'll watch a movie and be like, oh yeah, and then I get online and people are talking about the color grading or how the camera didn't move enough or uh it's flat looking, and I'm like, what are you guys even doing? Like what are you watching?
Exactly.
Whatever. I'm just easy to please, I think, is what it's come down to. And
No, I don't think so. I just think you enjoy having fun and you don't look at everything with the most analytical looking for things to not enjoy kind of eye. Like you're a good fan. Just like a lot of us are, but it seems to be a dwindling number by the day, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
all right, yeah, we can talk about X-Men 97. We can turn the page. We can let's freaking go over to X-Men 97, episode 7, Bright Eyes, which was written by Charley Feldman and J.B. Ballard, directed by Emi-Emmet Yonumura. And the synopsis was the X-Men find Sentinel inventor Bolivar Trask, realizing that they've been played by a mastermind. And it aired April 24th, 2024 on Disney Plus. Uh I'll say they got me on this one because we had been kind of told that Mr. Sinister was the villain, and
Yep.
we did get a twist here, and it's a twist I think that really works. I didn't know Bastion that much, but uh, they're obviously doing Operation Zero Tolerance,
Yeah.
and I started reading that arc today. I'll have it finished by next week when we hopefully see some more of the outcome of that.
Mm.
But yeah, so I think that fits. Like, I know we were thinking Cassandra Nova because of the E is for Extinction type arc, where a lot. So that's the thing. They've kind of been mixing all of this stuff together,
Yeah.
right? Like this Emma scene here that we'll talk about later is straight out of the E is for Extinction when they find
Yeah.
her in the
Oh yeah.
rubble and she's got the new mutation. But a
Yep.
lot of this other stuff is coming from a different arc, which also came out in what year? 1997, which I
Seven.
think is
Yeah.
really, really awesome.
It's so funny. So I totally popped when we first saw the OZT on screen because the
Are you
first,
down with OZT?
I mean, well, you know me. So this event was the first X-Men comic that I ever bought was not even an actual X-Men comic. It was a Wolverine comic. It was 97 or 98. I know I was super young, had to be 5 or 6, and Wolverine was
Mm.
on the cover, and this event was like taking place during that time. I didn't remember how it ended or anything like that, without going back and looking, because when you're 5, you're picking out comics that you think look cool. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, that cover's awesome, I'm grabbing that one. Uh, so I kind of had to go and do a little refresher course on the whole storyline and stuff. But to your point, I love the way that they've been sort of combining different fragments of stories into one new kind of original story. Like, we've seen so much influence of Days of Future Past in this season. Just go down the list of all the stories. It's been weaved. What, I don't know what the past tense of that is, but it's been whatever
Yeah,
it is. It's
woven, I
been done,
believe.
woven. It's been woven together beautifully.
Yeah, and it makes me think like I'm so glad I wasn't in charge of this show. Like they just we knew Cable was going to play a role in it. And
Mm.
Cable, it makes sense why Cable's in the storyline because of Bastion, and he had that run in with him in Operation Zero Tolerance and everything as well. So like they definitely are. I can't believe it's only been 7 episodes. It feels like we've gotten so much in these 7 episodes. It actually feels a lot longer.
Yeah.
And it helps when they spread these out. It really does.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
we got so much stuff again in this episode, and I know not to sound like a broken record, but how they managed to fit all of this into 30 minutes is just mind blowing. It's just bang, bang, bang. It doesn't let up. Even in this, what like Bo DeMeo said on Twitter today, he said, like, now the table's set and it's time for 8, 9, and 10. This episode, for the most part, did feel very much like a table setting episode. But with that said, there was still so much like going on, and there was a good amount of action to where you didn't just feel like it was just watching people talk for a half hour. Like the way that they've done it is just, man, it's just so good.
yeah, I mean, for a table setting episode, I feel like actually a lot happens in
Yeah.
this, right? Like we find out the real mastermind. You get the reveal Magneto's alive. You get a great character moment, which is Remy's funeral at
Hmm.
the beginning, which is the casket we saw in the trailer
Yep.
that they always said was like Charles, right? Like
Hmm.
in the trailer, they would always make it seem like they're talking about Charles with that, but it's hiding that it is Gambit. And this episode, we even got Captain America appearing.
Oh yeah.
Um, I love this,
Rogue
by the
said,
way.
"Give me that." Give
Yeah,
me that.
give me that. And then she just chucked it
Yeet.
away.
Just
Um,
tosses that thing.
this was great. What we saw somebody say that they didn't understand Cap in this. Captain America, this is what he would do. All right. I
Yeah.
mean, he can't. He's like he makes a very good point when he says me going to Mexico and just bashing skulls in. Not a good look. And it's
No.
not because he is a symbol of America. And if
Yeah.
he's going and attacking a foreign country, that's what they would think, right? Like
Yeah.
there is that line. Um, so I really enjoyed his portrayal in this, and he does feel for them. He does mention what the tragedy was. It's more than a mutant tragedy, he says.
Hmm.
But his hands are tied,
Yeah.
and that's when she takes the shield.
There's a massive difference between Cap, being rational and thinking, hey, this isn't the best idea, and him just being a government bootlicker who would never go against, like, because that's what people were making it out to be. Like he was nothing
Right.
more than a government pawn who they point and I jump, sort of thing. That's not the vibes that I got from this at all. It was him being the rational one, with Rogue as the opposite, who was anything but in that moment and very much driven by her own grief.
Yeah, so I guess let's talk about Rogue. She goes off on she misses Remy's funeral.
Yep.
That's a key thing. But she goes off on a mission here of trying to figure out where Trask is, right? And she's going hunting for Gyrick because she believes Gyrick will lead her to Trask, and she's just absolutely losing it. She's fighting the military. We run into Thunderbolt Ross
Thunderbolt Ross.
here.
Not expecting that. That was awesome.
No, who voiced him? Because he sounded great.
I don't know, but he did.
I have to look that up.
He had that grovelly kind of.
Yeah, it sounded like almost like an imitation of the film one before it's Harrison Ford. But
I feel, dude, that's not the only like. I noticed that heavy with Cable too. He sounds so much like Josh Brolin. Like he really does.
I think it might just be Josh Brolin sounds like Cable because I mean, like it's the same voice actor. So I mean, as before. So it's very interesting that because I saw somebody else say the same thing as you in that in that case.
Yeah. Oh, also in this scene where Rogue is kind of going ape shit on the Thunderbolt Ross and all the government military guys. I feel like in every episode of this show so far, all the dialogue's been great, but I feel like coming out of every episode, there's been like one or two quotes from each episode that are just like, oof, that really stick with you. And when she's talking to Ross and he's like, I thought you people were supposed to be the heroes. And she was like, you killed them, sugar. Now you get like, oh, bro, let's go. Like, just, oh, God, the one-liners in this show have been perfect.
All right, now I know why he sounds familiar. He's Michael Patrick McGill, and he voiced him in What If. Okay. So he definitely is doing like a William Hurt type of impersonation with that, and why it sounds so good to me is because it sounds very, very good. Yeah, that's pretty cool. They must have been like, oh, you nailed that voice in What If. Here you go.
It ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah,
right. I don't know. It's just cool that we're getting some of that wider Marvel Universe stuff in parts that make sense. It's not like they're just showing up like it's Wolverine's birthday and we invited Spider-Man and Captain America. Like it's stuff that has to do with the actual stakes and the plot of the show.
Yep. And I think this is just the beginning of that. Once this fight that we've only really seen on mutant soil start to make its way to the New Yorks and we already kind of saw it in the ending of tonight's episode or today's episode with that whole fight with Trask, and we'll get there. But I think we'll start seeing a lot more of those cameos once, as more of this conflict starts to take place in the U.S. mainland. Bo DeMeo gave us blue balls today already when somebody asked him about Spider-Man maybe being in this show. And he said, you'll just have to wait and see. I feel like he probably would have just not answered the question if it was no. Like he would have just ignored it. It was a Twitter reply or something. So that's another one that I'm like definitely keeping my fingers crossed on that we'll get that OG animated series Spider-Man.
Even if he said no, people would have not believed him. Did you see the whole thing with Invincible season 2? With
how Spider-Man was like in it, but not really in it?
Yeah. So somebody that saw like, was it Cryptic, the leaker Cryptic that gets all the runtimes right, said that Spider-Man is in season 2 of Invincible, right? And somebody got a Vance copy of it and was like, no, I understand what they're referring to, but it's not. And then, they were being cryptic about it, hence their name. And then like My Time to Say Hello was like, oh yeah, like Josh Keaton's voicing Spider-Man. Like, but they never really said Spider-Man. And it turned out it wasn't actually Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that guy was like, yeah, I was right. And then those people were like, well, we never said Spider-Man.
Yeah. But it's like, all right. Dude,
but even then, like Robert Kirkman was like, no, like it's not, he's not in it. And that was like, but then all the fans were like, but the leakers are saying they are, and they must be lying to throw at us, Yeah. So even if he had said no, what I would assume is maybe season 2. I just don't know how he fits in this season 1.
I think it would be much more. It wouldn't be a big like character focus thing. There is going to be at least one.
Might just see him.
There's going to be 1 to 2 like major fights throughout these last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And I think at least one of them we're going to get a pretty decent amount of cameos. Probably Strange, maybe Spider-Man, probably not Captain Marvel. I don't even really know what she's up to right now in this world.
She's still Miss Marvel, supposedly,
Yeah.
from last time we saw her. And she did get healed. Like, remember, she was kind of comatose. She got fixed.
Yep.
She flew off, I think. I don't know. We don't know.
She's out there, but yeah,
she's out there somewhere. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of more like
people that
maybe,
showed up
like
in
maybe
the original.
Punisher, or just more street level, kind of like maybe a Punisher shows up, somebody like that. To where again, it kind of all ties into this like U.S. mainland on the ground fighting that we already saw the first pieces of. At the end
so no Captain Britain.
No, probably not. No.
I love Captain Britain, actually. I really wanted him to get a project.
I will say
anyway.
it would be a hilarious troll if he was in the show and Henry Cavill voiced him, and that was
that
was Henry Cavill's Captain
That
Britain.
was his MCU role that he got?
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to say I was wrong. I said that maybe we would get Storm and Xavier in the opening credits. We didn't. It's the same opening credits as last time. Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine,
almost.
Morph, Rogue, Beast, Jubilee, Nightcrawler.
We do get one alternate shot, though. We get the shot of Bishop walking forward. It's really quick, like blink and you miss it. And we see Storm's like next to him in her black suit. And we also see Wolverine in a black suit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they could go 1 of 2 ways with this. It could either be future versions of the characters, like, because I think if I recall, they were stepping like through a portal. So it could be the future versions of those characters coming back to like now to help whatever's going on. Or we did hear that these characters were going to all get sort of different costumes by the time this thing was all wrapped up. So it could, and the suit that Storm was wearing did look very similar to the one that we saw her get last week. So I do think it's also very possible that that is just kind of a shot like foreshadowing future episodes. Again, I don't know how Wolverine would also get the black suit in this case, but we'll see, I guess. You're muted.
Interesting, he wears black in that future that Bishop comes from. So I wonder.
So that it must be the future versions, yeah.
Yeah, but Storm wears like a white coat, white pants. I'm just rewatching the intro right now. By the way, I love Morph. Morph is great in this show. I'm glad that they are doing more stuff with Morph than what he really got in the animated series.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler.
It's not like he's not like he's the forefront every week or anything, but he's like a perfect ancillary kind of role playing character.
Yeah, he's usually like a jokester, right?
Yeah.
And he I think this scene that you're talking about was also in last week's, because I remember it, I think.
Oh,
Bishop.
was it?
It's after he kills Nimrod. Yeah, it's the future Wolverine and future Storm from that episode.
From the OG series. Okay.
Yeah, so I think they might just be kind of doing what they do sometimes and doing the catch up of it. But
yeah.
But no, he's usually comic relief, Morph, but he has a really great line when Rogue throws Trask out there. He's like, "Is this who we are now?" Like, he is putting up a "what are we doing" type of questioning, which I thought was really great to kind of get more from him in that regard.
It was. And that whole that whole scene was just like bone chilling. Like, never expected her to actually let go of him, but it just Rogue was a star throughout this whole episode, and it's a shame that it took such a traumatic event for like her to really shine. But this was definitely Rogue's episode all around. Like that little speech she gives at the end, just she is a woman at the end of her rope, and we see it literally when she commits what she thinks is murder, and what basically was murder for like a second.
So, we know Magneto's alive? Does she go back into Magneto's arms after losing Gambit now?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Because she's kind of teetering on that, like we said, almost villainous in the sense of like how she was acting. She's really taking her grief out on these people.
Mhm.
Magneto is probably going to be pissed. This might be what you said before about driving Magneto back to the other side, right?
Mhm.
Of that. So I could maybe see her having an arc where she does follow him to like his side.
Mhm.
Maybe not as lover, but I don't know, because like Nightcrawler does bring it up to her, like he lost two
Mhm.
people, and she's like, oh yeah, like true, like I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
But Nightcrawler is really great. He had a great speech at the
Yeah,
eulogy.
eulogy, yeah. A very Gambit eulogy for sure.
Yes, yeah, lots of card puns. It was a lot of gambling
Yeah.
puns. It was great.
Yep. We also, I kind of wanted to touch on really quick the scene when they first get there to Genosha after the
Yeah.
funeral and all that stuff. Uh, they really quickly kind of throw you into it, and it feels very real. Like I feel like a lot of times in these superhero projects, when there are these like catastrophic events, they tend to shy away from highlighting the aftermath of it, unless it's for a story purpose. Like I think of Civil War when Wanda killed all those people in Lagos accidentally, and that's what ends up being the crux for the whole story. But for the most part, you don't see like we didn't see too much of Hulk destroying half of New York in the first Avengers end scene. You don't really see too much of like the amount of people that probably died being caught up in that, and like all of the destruction that came as a result of them having to do what they did to save the city in that case. But in this show, right when they get back to Genosha, Beast goes up to who is it? Amelia, I think. Amelia Bott, right? And she starts talking about like the survivors and dealing with them and stuff. And it like she's almost speaking from like the place of a combat medic. And you see these sort of flash cut shots of like people with bloody bandages and stuff. And it just felt so like very real. And it's kind of a theme that the show has just done well in general so far. So to see that sort of again real world emotion uh, made this show feel just so much more grounded as opposed to some of these other superhero projects that are very just like, oh, they left a crater the size of Manhattan in the city, but they saved the day. You know what I mean? Like we're actually seeing the after effects of this very real kind of destruction.
Yes. That is kind of lost my place on where I was going to go with that.
Oh, you're good. I was very long winded. I apologize.
No, you're okay. You're okay. But no, yeah, I mean, it's when you're dealing with loss like that. One thing that really hit me with her was, when she's saying, um, we always think we want to be the survivors
Hmm.
until you're actually tending to the survivors, and then you're like, no, I'd rather would have probably have died, because she just sees what they're going through.
Yeah.
um, which is a very haunting thought. Again, for a show that was originally aimed at children. Again, this is kind of like a step up, right? Like we're talking like, um, I would assume this is TV 14. They don't actually have to
I
rate
think it's
these.
only TVPG.
Yeah, they don't actually have to rate these, but like we even get Cyclops saying like, "What the hell are you doing here?" to Cable at the end of
Yeah.
the episode, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Whoa." Uh,
You dropped
but
the
no, they show.
HE double hockey
Yeah,
sticks?
what? That's how I used to be as a kid. I go, whoa, they're
Yeah.
saying some stuff. I had this time where Back to the Future is my favorite movie,
Mhm.
and I'm like probably 7. I'm brushing my teeth after watching the movie, and I just quote a line from it. I say, "Let's see if these bastards can do 90." And my mom walks by, and she's like, "Jordan, that's not a good word." I was like, how am I supposed to know? I just know my hero, Marty
Yeah.
McFly, says it. So I had no clue. That's when I learned bastard was a bad word. But I was just like, yeah. Um, but yes, while I'll say it is probably, I'd say maybe just more aimed at families is how I'll say it. It's
Mhm.
a real show that handles real issues that I think kids can watch this, and if they have somebody watching it with them that can kind of explain where the show is coming from, that would be helpful. Like, I don't think I would be like, kid, you can't watch this, right? Like,
No, no,
there
no.
isn't anything overtly like gory or anything about it.
Mhm.
But
I will
still,
say
just kind of
if I was a kid watching this right now, it would be like
life changing.
yes, like we all have those cartoons
Yes.
that like stick with us as a kid. Like if you're a kid today and this is what you get to come up on, like oh my god, so jealous, so jealous.
Right, right. Like, I mean, obviously, you know how that is because X-Men '92 was what was something that kept with us, right? Like,
Yeah.
as we were growing up, enough that when this show was coming out, we're like, we gotta watch
Well,
'97.
and the original didn't have nearly the depth of this one
No,
in just
yeah,
the 7 episodes that we've seen. It's for as much as it's the same show, it's almost an entirely different show in terms of the seriousness and the maturity of it and
yeah,
the sort of interconnectivity of it all, not just in the sense of having like, little short arcs that connect, but a plot thread that was set up in episode 1 of this season still like not being paid off until the end, that kind of stuff.
right, right. And what I like about what they're doing too is that they are bringing stuff from the original
Mhm.
over. Like, these characters are still on the same trajectory. They'll reference stuff that has happened back then. Um, so that's been all fantastic.
No,
So,
that's coming out next year.
oh yeah, sorry. Uh, Trish Tilby, Beast and her have a great exchange here, and just even the moment of like Beast closing the like cover, like
Yeah,
how he does like the what is that curtain,
yeah.
right? As she's walking up because he doesn't want her to have to see it and stuff. But he
Mhm.
brings up a really good point. She is trying to extend a hand here of like I like she does care about him and she
Mhm.
is like I sorry what you're going through. But he also says something about like along the lines of, "Oh, like how you broadcasted it in front of our mansion
Yeah,
while we're grieving." And that's what can be seen as very tone deaf, right? Like, think about any time you're flipping on the TV and news and they're like, behind us is a house where people just got shot dead. And
yeah,
you're like, oh my God, like, why are you outside their house,
yeah,
right? Like, you
very
can
much so.
actually report on that somewhere else. You don't have to be in front of the house.
Mhm.
In her case, though, I feel like she was already there.
Yeah,
She was there doing the other thing, so I can kind of see that. But we're seeing a little bit of Beast maybe turning the page a bit here.
we are, and I think this that is like the turning point. Like when I think of Beast, I think of like the moral conscience of the X-Men. So like
Yes.
him finally making that turn, and we see so much in this episode of humans also making that turn against mutants. We see Senator Kelly kind of turn his back on Scott Cyclops. We see Roberto's parents. They're like, yeah, we know you're a mutant, but like our reputation is important, so don't tell anybody. Which is super coded. That I picked this up and I didn't know if I was wrong, but I saw a bunch of reviewers today also mentioning this. Many that are in the LGBTQ community and how like that whole thing was very much a mirror of that kind of situation. So
Which
we're
makes sense. Bo DeMeo is
yes,
openly gay, so
yeah,
he's probably drawing off of. He didn't write this scene, but they are drawing
yeah.
off of that. Yeah,
It's just another real world thing that they're drawing off. So we see humanity kind of showing exactly how far that acceptance and toleration of mutants goes. And it's so crazy because we're seeing the mutants now just kind of being like, what the hell? Like, this is bullshit. Even now Hank McCoy is like kind of starting to circle the wagons. And it's so crazy because the way that I see it is that they're all finally starting to adapt Magneto's old mentality. And the irony of the fact that it took his death, even though we know he's not dead, for his old point to finally get through to people is like deep as hell, man.
well, what's funny is it's the exact opposite of Magneto,
Yeah.
right? It took Charles's death for him to be like, I got to do Charles's mission, right? Like, so it's like this nice little parallel
Yeah.
that they're going in different directions.
Very much so.
Uh, what this shows me is that they really do need Charles there. Like, this isn't something that he could have stayed away in the Shi'ar Empire. He needs to go back. They need his guidance.
Hell,
And
they
I
need,
think that might
the
create some.
Shi'ars at this point too. Bring all of them. Bring every
Yeah.
tank you got. We need reinforcements, baby. Come on.
It might like. It might create some confliction in the and friction in the group when Charles returns, because I do think maybe Cyclops would still be a little like, I don't know, man. We're trying,
Mhm.
but I think it might also be just that calming presence you need.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if when you have a mentor in your real life, and maybe um, maybe you're being led astray until you have a nice conversation with them and you're like, "Oh, I'm back on track. Like I'm going where I need to go." And I could see that like immediately kind of wiping away some of this, right? Like Charles coming in and being like having a great conversation with them and being like, "I'm here for you. I'm back." But we still can't be what Magneto wants us to be, right? Like we still have to be the X-Men. I think that'd be a really cool thing, and I think hopefully that starts coming in the next 3. I really hope that this is just my dream, is that by the 3rd episode, the finale of those 3, every X-Men is in that opening sequence. Except for Gambit, because
I
he'll
was
be
gonna
dead.
say,
But you know what I'm
Gambit's
saying?
here.
Like, get us Storm, get us Xavier, put Sunspot like getting his title card, right?
Yeah.
Like he is joining the team, it seems, right? Like
Mhm.
let's go and get everybody in
Just
this
replace
opening
all
sequence.
like the B-roll action shots with just everyone's
I
title.
think that's why they have so much of them, honestly, is so they
Mhm.
can swap in stuff without, you know, that's why I think it is, because they've
Mhm.
inserted more of those when they lose like Magneto and Gambit and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's space for them to do that, and that's like the dream. I want to see them all in there.
Mhm. Yeah, that would be dope. Going back to your point on Charles, though, so I kind of see this playing out a little differently. What I think is going to happen is that he's gonna come down back to Earth and try to play his kind of kumbaya thing that he loves to do. We have to coexist. Da-da-da-da-da. And they're all going to be like, dude, F off. You've been gone for all this time and we've suffered these traumatic events and now you want to come back down here and play Boy Scout. Like, I think there's going to be some pretty, especially between him and Scott. That's the one that I'm highlighting, especially because we've seen Scott more than any of them sort of turn heel over these last episodes and just basically be fed up with this whole tolerance or lack thereof. So I think there's going to be a lot of butting of heads there. I don't think it's going to be as simple as like, oh, Charles is back. Thank the heavens, you know.
Yeah, so let's talk about the end stuff here. The villains. Trask dies, but it is actually like, was it not really Trask the whole time? Then it's like he's turned into a Sentinel. Like,
It
what's
is,
the?
yes. So it is Trask, but he's been essentially morphed into, no pun intended, into a Sentinel, basically Sinister and Bastion, kind of like in this. And again, I didn't remember this. I had to look this up in the Operation Zero Tolerance deal, and with Bastion, his whole thing is creating an army of human sentinels to fight the mutants and essentially wipe them out. It's actually a government program that he gets like backing for, and
Yes.
it ends up. I won't spoil how it ends, but I think that's kind of where they're going with this. We're going to see more and more. Hell, dude, can you imagine if if this is a government program and we've seen Captain America working with the government in this thing? Can you imagine that if Cap is actually a prime Sentinel? Like, there's so many possibilities of cool stuff they could do with this.
And what do we think with the president? Because he was kind of like, hey, I don't want somebody else to take the place that is more anti-mutant. But let's say it is a government thing. Maybe he is in on it. He was anti-mutant to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and then got saved, and then turned into being pro-mutant. But what if, like, he's part of this, right? We don't know how deep this can actually go.
And we know that Val Cooper is still missing, who we kind of
Yes, I love that.
assume. Oh no, what are you saying?
I was just gonna say I love that mention, because it does make me think that she is actually maybe Mystique and she changed into somebody else and left or something, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what my opinion is.
That's exactly, yeah, that's it. But I could also see, like, maybe what really happened is she got found out and now she is captured as well. Like they kind of caught her being the mole within the government's ranks. They were doing all this stuff uh behind, pulling the wool over the mutants' eyes and making all these deals with Bastion and setting up this whole government related program of Operation Zero Tolerance. And that was essentially like Rogue Raven was just kind of like sniffing it out, and then they end up finding out that she was in fact, Val, and they're she's captured at that point. So that's another thing I could totally see.
Yeah, so you had a theory with this Magneto thing. You want me to pop the picture up?
Yeah, sure. So this is not my theory, but it's one that I've seen a few times today, and it does make a lot of sense. So who you see on screen right now is Onslaught. What he is basically is an amalgamation of the worst parts of Charles and of Magneto. What we see in the end of this episode is not only is Magneto captured, but Bastion's basically got the Mojo television, not literally the Mojo television, but he's got a television locked in on everything that Charles specifically is doing. So when you take those two things into account, naturally you would think what he's trying to do is capture them both, and this is going to be another thing that they alter from the comics. This is just kind of a being in the comics that comes to be. It forms itself out of the worst parts of Charles and Magneto. What they're going to probably do in the show if they adapt this is like I'm going to guess maybe he'll take DNA from them both, Bastion will, and create a Sentinel, like a Prime Sentinel, using their kind of DNA just to make it fit into this story a little more and have it be more cohesive. Because in the comic, it is very just like, oh, he was here one day and it formed out of these bad thoughts. And it's just like not really totally clear what he is outside of the fact that he's an amalgamation of evil. Like, I think by making him a Sentinel and adding some more of that backstory, it'll make it a lot more cohesive and would provide them with a truly like OP final battle in this show, in the finale.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have much to add to that, but I think it'd be interesting. Yeah, so we have Bastion is the main villain. It seems like, so really cool. Really looking forward to. And that's voiced by Theo James. That's the fan favorite that people were wondering who's he going to be playing.
Yep. Dude, and it's so crazy. There was so much. It's so funny because we should have known that this was going to be Bastion from like day one. They were planting seeds. There was a scene in episode 2 when they're all in the UN talking, like that they kind of plant a seed at this. Actually, in the first Life Death episode, when they're showing all the pictures of Forge, like with all of those teams and stuff, there's one picture of him with Bastion, and it's cut off.
Yes, it's cut off. Yep.
So like the way that they did that was really clever, I guess, for lack of a better term. But now that leads us down a whole nother rabbit hole of like, I know we joked about it last week of Forge just be like, well, guys, I accidentally may have made some weapons for this guy too. But it seems like that's actually going to be like where they go with it. Like how much of Forge's technology is at play with all of these Prime Sentinels and stuff. I'm going to guess probably a fair amount, which will lead to him and Storm kind of reinserting themselves into this story and sort of providing that a bit of an advantage in the sense of like Forge knows at least a bit of how these Sentinels operate because a lot of it is his own tech.
That'd be interesting. Again, like I think that is, yeah, I saw that theory going around with throughout the weeks, right? Where people were like, look, there's a Bastion nod here. He's maybe in the opening credits, or there's this, there's that, the picture on with Forge. I thought that was very interesting. Again, I didn't really know who Bastion was because it was at like a time where like I wasn't reading these comics, I was more familiar with like Claremont's run, even though I didn't read all of it. But like I was more familiar with that stuff than the '97 onwards
Hmm.
with X-Men. So yeah, just pretty cool. I like that kind of stuff though. Like give us little teases like that, build it up. Even if I don't know who they are, like just knowing the seeds were planted, it's not like a out of left field type of thing.
Hmm.
Is great. That's what I always strive for. That's what I would always strive for if I was writing any of this stuff. Is you don't want anything to come out of like left field with this stuff. You want to
No.
make sure that it's for the fans and that you're also building up to stuff.
Yeah, when you've got that sort of thread that as fans, when we get the reveal, we can go back and be like, oh, I missed that and I missed this. Like it just makes it so much more satisfying, and they nailed it in this one. Before we kind of get going here, should we talk about Scott and Jean a little bit? Because they touched on it a little bit in their relationship this week. Uh, and it seems that Jean is a lot more understanding now of the whole Madeline thing. We even see when Scott thinks that it's Madeline that they found, when they're like, oh, we found a telepath, and it's Emma, and he's upset, which by the way is hilarious to think about. He was like, it's just all right, well, it was a different one of Scott's love interests, but we'll get there down the line.
Keep her buried.
Yeah, yeah. uh so yeah, it seemed like Jean and Scott's relationship definitely took a bit more of a step forward this week. I will say, if they set up all of this strife throughout this season just to have them at the end to be like, well, we realized we were both kind of wrong, and now everything's great again, I will be a little bummed. Like, I feel like there's got to be some kind of long-standing, like, residual, I guess, like, evidence, just like something has to come out of that story as instead of it just being, oh, we just wanted to make some some kind of conflict in Scott and Jean's relationship. Like if nothing comes out of it and it's all honky happy dory at the end again, it'll feel a little like, what was the point?
Well, I would disagree with that a bit. I think that you can still have it mean something, but also still wrap it up. Like
Mhm.
I don't even think they're fully there yet. It's he's almost saying like we almost have to put on this face. They need us right now, type of thing. And they have this great image where you see their reflections in the TV as
Yeah.
they're watching like the footage and stuff. But like, so I think while they'll kind of be cordial and with each other at this point, I still think there might still be a little bit more ways to go. But I'm on the opposite end of where I just want them back together. I don't really want to see them apart. So for me, I'm already like, let's get these kids back together. Let's get them
You
put them in
two
a
love
room,
each other.
and yes, let's work this out. Okay,
Marriage
that's
counselor
what
Jordan over here.
that's my thought. Yeah, sometimes I dislike a lot of shows when they have to go the back and forth. So,
Mm.
um,
Girl,
but
leave
again,
him.
there's going to be maybe some stuff that gets still thrown in between them,
Mm.
right? You have, like I said, maybe the return of Charles, and if he does take a more harder stance than what Charles would, maybe she does get brushed away a little bit again. Like they might still have
The
some
big
big
shiny girl
disagreement.
that they pulled out from the rubble that we were just talking about. I'm sure
Yes,
she's gonna cause at least a little monkey wrench in the Scott Jean relationship in season 2.
yes, that'd be great. Is that everything for this? Let's talk real quick a little bit more about Sunspot. You mentioned
Yeah.
that with Roberto, but yeah, just a really great scene, like that they already knew, right? A mother
Mhm.
knows, like especially like the houses have caught fire so many times. Like, well, of
Yeah,
course they're
yeah.
gonna figure it out,
How
right?
did you guys know? It's just like a
It's
Family
either
Guy
that or
cutaway.
you're, yeah, it's
It's an
either that
episode of
or
the
you
house.
are constantly lighting matches, right? And it's like, hopefully
We're
you're not intentionally burning it down. So we're happy it's a mutation.
it's the Tim Robinson hot dog, but he's just standing there with like he's just covered in ash. We're all trying to figure out who did this.
Everybody else is clean, and it's like
Yeah,
he's the only one covered in suit and stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Oh man.
but yeah, just a great scene when you get the uh her saying, "All right, we got to keep it undercover," and that Roberto's kind of pushing back on that. Before he was a little bit more, yes, let's keep it undercover, but now it seems like he might be taking those steps, and I think hopefully by the finale he's suiting up, and that's what I would love to see.
Yeah, he's got to become Sunspot by the end of this. It was a scene for me that like started out feeling very wholesome, but when she got into the well, you got to hide this thing, I was like, that feels a little gross. But again, it was definitely seemingly an intentional move to further the parallels of what we talked about before with the gay community and all that. So it was very real. It was very relatable to people, and it seems to have hit the mark. Which you can't ask for much more. Um, it was a great scene, and I really do hope that we get a little more of Roberto throughout this show, and not have like don't make the same mistake with him now that they made with Jubilee in the original series, where it was like they made it seem like she was going to be like basically the focal point of the show, and then pretty quickly just kind of got lost in the shuffle. So hopefully that doesn't happen to Roberto.
Yes, I no, I agree. Yeah, I'm excited. The next episode is titled what? Tolerance is
Tolerance is
Extinction.
extinction. Yeah, that's
Part
a good.
one.
That's a good part. We don't have to worry about remembering episode titles for the next three. It's all the same thing, so that's good.
Right, right. And the synopsis is just the X-Men must unite to face a new threat. We now know who that is. So
Yeah, the synopsises I saw for the last three episodes all today are very vague, and
vague.
I'd imagine that's purposeful.
Yes, and I'm very happy that that's what they did.
Yep. Yeah, same exact thing we were talking about with the Deadpool trailer earlier.
Yep, yep.
We don't need to be spoon fed the entire thing before we've even seen it.
Right. But yeah, no, thank you all for watching and listening with us. We got 3 more episodes left of the season. If we're going to take Bodemeo's word, they're supposed to be very good. So I'm very looking forward to that. And this one was the setup for those. I'm sure we'll be diving deep into those episodes as they release. So when does this show wrap up? May 11th. Wow.
Yeah.
15th. May 15th.
I was going to say
yeah.
it's the 15th. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm dreading it. I'm already like, I'm so excited to see these last 3 episodes, but it's so bittersweet because in my head I'm already thinking like, this is such an event.
A long wait.
This is one of those things. I forget if I jumped on my soapbox last week on the show or if it was in our group chat, but just like this thing has felt like such a major event every single week. Everyone's tuned in. It very much has that 90s television vibe to it in the sense of like, you go into the office next day or you go into the school next day and everyone's talking about it. This show very much has that vibe. And I'm going to be very sad when it's not here anymore, even though we are obviously getting more of it probably this time next year, I would imagine.
I would hope so. I saw some people speculating 2026, and I was like, please don't make us wait.
My God. I will go to Disney myself. Straight up. I can't even say the things that I would do because our page are.
And we're just kidding. He's just kidding. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Totally. Totally.
You can reach us and send us all of your long form feedback via email, marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. You can tweet us at TO Infinity Saga. That is our handle there. Facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. And of course, we're somewhere on Instagram too. I think it's just the full To the Infinity Saga and Beyond handle there. But make sure you follow us at all those places. You can reach us if you want to share your feedback on the show itself or just talking about X-Men 97 or Deadpool and Wolverine. Do you think the color grading looks great or awful? Let us know. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel, which we are trying to grow. We just opened up the YouTube channel like late last year compared to when I started the podcast, which was 4 years ago. So make sure you follow us over on the YouTube as well. Great. Well, have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we talk X-Men 97, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 1.